my colleague, Mary Moriarty, Hennepin County Attorney, and we want to say thank you for making it here today. Honestly, none of us should have to be here today, but let me explain why. On May 18th, 2026, after a thorough investigation, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, Mary Moriarty, charged an ICE agent, Christian Castro, with 4 felony counts of second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon, as well as a misdemeanor charge of falsely reporting a crime. My office is joining with her office in that prosecution, and I want to commend the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for their professionalism and excellent legal and investigative work. At the press conference where we announced the complaint against Castro, we noted that no one's above the law. A little bit of a refresher. The criminal complaint alleges that on January 14th, 2026, during Operation Metro Surge, Castro fired a gun at the door of the home in North Minneapolis. Despite knowing the home was occupied with multiple people, his gunshot struck Julio Sosa Solis in the leg and injured him. The final impact point of Castro's bullet was a child's bedroom wall. Children were in the house when Castro fired into it. The Hennepin County criminal complaint also alleges that Castro falsely told the FBI that Mr. Sosa Solis and another man assaulted him with a broom handle and a snow shovel, and that he fired his weapon in self-defense. As a result, Sosa Solis and another man were charged with federal felonies. However, after video evidence emerged, those federal charges were dismissed with prejudice. After Hennepin County filed its charges against Castro, a district court judge found probable cause to believe that he committed those crimes. The judge issued a nationwide warrant for Castro's arrest. Castro was taken into custody in Cameron County, Texas, on May 29th. Just 4 days later, Governor Walz asked Governor Greg Abbott of Texas to extradite Castro to Minnesota. Yet, Castro is still not here to face justice. Under extradition clause of the U.S. Constitution and the 1797 Federal Extradition Act and Texas law, Governor Walz's request triggered a mandatory obligation for Governor Abbott to issue a governor's rendition warrant to Cameron County Sheriff Manuel Trevino to begin the transfer of Christian Castro back to Minnesota to face justice, instead of promptly fulfilling his legal ministerial duty to execute governor's rendition warrant for Castro. However, Governor Abbott has withheld the warrant and held up Castro's extradition for nearly 3 months. The framers of the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and Congress intended the interstate extradition process to be swift, summary one, in which a state that is harboring a person charged with a crime in another state promptly returns the fugitive as soon as requesting state demands it. The U.S. Supreme Court unanimously upheld this black letter law as recently as 1987. This means that Governor Abbott has a mandatory obligation to issue the governor's rendition warrant for Castro. He has no discretion. I repeat, he has no discretion to decline to do so. None. Yet Castro is still not here to face justice. Governor Walz's office has repeatedly asked Governor Abbott's office for updates. Governor Abbott did not respond. On July 30th, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty wrote Governor Abbott requesting an update. Governor Abbott did not respond. Last Thursday, August 13th, I sent Governor Abbott a letter, which is available for your review, to inform him that of his mandatory legal obligation to effectuate the return of Christian Castro to Minnesota to face justice, whether or not he needed the lesson. I cited all relevant constitutional and legal authorities that leave him no discretion in this matter. I informed him that if he did not sign the rendition warrant by the end of the day, yesterday, I would sue to compel him to do so. Governor Abbott did not respond. Castro is still not here to face justice. Therefore, this morning, my office filed suit asking the federal court in Texas to require Government Abbott to sign the warrant to block and to the block the Cam to sign the warrant and to block the Cameron County Sheriff from releasing Castro until Minnesota law enforcement can arrive there to physically transport Castro here to face the charges laid against him. The court has the authority to order the governor to and the sheriff to do this. The 1987 Supreme Court decision that I referenced earlier, known as Puerto Rico versus Branstad, affirmed the principle that states must honor each other's extradition requests and asserted that the federal courts have the authority to compel states to honor each other's extradition requests. The urgency of this filing is that Texas law imposes a 90-day limit on the detention of fugitives awaiting extradition. This means that as early as August 26, a week from tomorrow, 90 days after he was first captured and detained, Christian Castro could walk free from jail in Texas and flee justice in Minnesota, including by leaving the country. In the last 5 years, Governor Walz has honored all 21 of Governor Abbott's requests to extradite fugitives to Texas. In that same period, Governor Abbott has honored 11 of Governor Walz's requests to extradite fugitives to Minnesota until today. When I said none of us should be here today, this is exactly what I meant. Christian Castro has been charged with breaking the law in Minnesota. He must face justice in Minnesota. Governor Abbott should have granted Governor Walz's extradition request long ago and is required to do so now. I should never have to file this lawsuit, but I have done so today to protect the Constitution, the rule of law, Minnesota's rights, and the people of the state of Minnesota, and of course, the fair administration of justice. Christian Castro is not above the law, and Greg Abbott isn't either. Let me turn now to Hennepin County Attorney Mary Mariotti.
I'm Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Thank you all for being here. And I want to start by thanking Attorney General Keith Ellison and his staff, who've been great partners in our work to bring accountability for unlawful actions by federal agents during Operation Metro Surge. Christian Castro, a federal agent, as you know, is accused of shooting Julio Sosa Solis in the leg through the closed door of an occupied home on January 14th of 2026. He struck one person, Mr. Sosa Solis, but the bullet traveled through several walls in the house and put at least 3 other people in grave danger. Such an action is a crime in absolutely every state in this country. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office charged Christian Castro with 4 counts of second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. He was arrested in Texas with the help of the Texas Rangers, where he remains in jail. We have been working to extradite Mr. Castro, meaning have him sent here to face charges since he was located and arrested in Texas several months ago. So as the Attorney General said, and I don't think we can emphasize this enough, extradition is a routine administrative process. It isn't about politics, it is the law. There are very few cases on it because this hasn't happened very much in the past. And the cases that are there are very clear. This is an administrative process. This is not a legally discretionary task. Governor Abbott is required by law to sign the governor's warrant that has been with his office since June 3rd. As the Attorney General said, this is not a position we should be in. We should not have to file a lawsuit which is entirely unnecessary, or should be, because this is simply an administrative task. Mr. Castro or anybody else doesn't have a right, by the way, for a trial in Texas, in the other state. He has a right to an extradition proceeding. We must prove his identity, which we are prepared to do, and the actual trial would take place here. It's interesting, and I think everybody should think about this. The extradition clause is actually in the United States Constitution. It is a constitutional provision, and the idea of it is that the states, all of the United States, each respect the criminal processes of other states by returning to the charging state any person fleeing criminal charges. You all know this. There are many times when somebody's charged in one state, they end up in another state, and the extradition clause and all of the statutes that came behind it are to make this a simple process, a simple, straightforward process. When he arrives in Minnesota, Mr. Castro will be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and he'll have the right to present any defenses that he has. There is absolutely nothing that should prevent him from being brought to Minnesota to receive a fair trial. And as the Attorney General said, and we can't emphasize enough, the only thing stopping Mr. Castro from being here in Hennepin County to face the appropriate charges is a signature from Governor Greg Abbott. I encourage the governor to sign the paperwork today to avoid litigation in what should be a completely unnecessary lawsuit. As the prosecutorial authority for this incident, Hennepin County Attorney's Office is prepared to begin its prosecution as soon as Mr. Castro is delivered to Minnesota in state custody. It's worth noting that during the time that we've been waiting for Governor Abbott to sign the Castro extradition warrant, and remember that's June 3rd, Governor Abbott has signed 3 extradition warrants for other defendants in Texas facing criminal charges in Minnesota. In other words, since Castro's been sitting in jail and since our governor, Governor Walz, got the extradition paperwork to Abbott on June 3rd, we have requested, Governor Walz has requested 3 other people who were sitting in Texas jails, and Governor Abbott has signed the appropriate paperwork in each case. And as the Attorney General said too, in the last 5 years, more than 30 extraditions have occurred between Texas and Minnesota. And that establishes a long track record of extradition cooperation between the 2 states, which is as it should be. I'm hopeful that the litigation that the Attorney General has filed today will move us towards the correct outcome. And that is Mr. Castro appearing in a Hennepin County courtroom to be held accountable for his actions. Thank you.
Yes.
Keith and Mary, good morning.
Good morning.
I wonder if you have any information about your assessment as to whether he would pose a flight risk should Mr. Castro be released in Texas in coming days. And if and when he is arraigned in Minnesota, I'm wondering if you have a clear sense of how you would navigate the question of pretrial release.
I presume he's a flight risk because he could waive extradition and come right back. And so, yeah, I am concerned about that.
But is there anything else about the case or his movements in the weeks before his arrest that lead you to believe that he could be a flight risk?
Well, one thing that we know is he is currently being held in a border town in Texas. We know that he has some connections to Mexico, and we know that he has some thought of, at some point, going to Mexico. So we do believe he's a risk. I should also say we had these charges and this warrant out there. I can't tell you the exact time and date, but he did not turn himself in as Gregory Morgan did. He did not turn himself in. He did not make himself available to the Texas authorities so that we could start this process. So those are indications to us that he is a flight risk.
And to that end, Mary, I don't know if we've ever heard like the details of that arrest in Texas. I mean, was he chased down by Texas Rangers? Was he on duty? Do we know any of the details of how he was taken into custody? Because I do think that would point towards your concern about being a flight risk.
Well, he was taken into custody once he was approached by BCA agents and with some help in Texas. He did peacefully give himself up, but he did not give himself up before that occurred.
Just a point of clarification, in terms of him being handed over to Minnesota law enforcement, that would be Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. That would be taking custody of them?
No, it would be the BCA.
BCA.
The BCA has been in Texas. And I should tell you too that the BCA has been working with the Texas authorities. Our office has had contact with the prosecutor in this county and the jailers and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of conversation there and frankly cooperation on that level. But it would be the BCA that would take Mr. Castro into custody and bring him back here. It is the responsibility of the state that's asking for the person to be returned to bear that expense to bring the person back.
Do we know why he was in Texas in the first place? Was that just for duties as ICE agent?
Well, he had a court date he had to respond to. He was down there in connection with that. And so he had, he had, those were the reasons for his presence there. And apparently he has some lives there on the other side of the border as well.
Governor Abbott's office told us today that they're not going to have any comments on extradition matters. The governor's not going to have any comment. Have you had any conversations with them? Have they been giving you any indication of what the delay is if they're looking to resist this? Or is this just radio silence from the governor?
Look, Governor Abbott has received communication with us on an ongoing basis, including recently. We have to take the position that they are refusing to honor the extradition request. So given a good answer, that's what you're asking, other than they don't agree, that's what we have to conclude.
And I think to that point too, there have been conversations, as the Attorney General said, both Governor Walz's office, all of us have been trying to communicate with the governor's office down there. Radio silence, however, there was a conversation, as I understand it today. And the conversation was somewhat vague on the part of the staff of Governor Abbott, but it was made clear that he does not intend to honor this request and that he seems to consider it discretionary, but did not provide any case or any statute or anything to support that.
Would this lawsuit in any way prevent that 90-day expiration of the hold for an extradition warrant? Would this lawsuit in any way prevent Mr. Castro from being released?
Well, we believe that the court will act on our lawsuit before the expiration. So that's why we filed it now. That's why we had to file it. I might add too that normally these matters are handled fairly quickly. Minnesota signs extradition warrants pretty quick, within days. Texas is not taking longer than 30 days. So here we are, a couple of months and change. It's very clear that they're saying no. And it's not, and just to answer to your question before, they're not saying, we just missed that one. We're getting around to it. That is not the posture they're taking.
And that was one of the reasons I sent the letter, because we didn't, sometimes things land in a stack of papers, and we wanted to be sure that it had come to his attention. And so I sent my letter, the Attorney General sent his letter, and it is now very clear that he knows all about it and he just intends not to sign it, at least as of this morning.
And Texas Democrats have pressed him as well on this, so it's becoming much more apparent that there is active resistance here.
Yes.
Sadly, yes.
I think that's very clear. I would also say the goal here too is to get the federal courts to act to make sure that the jail down there does not release him. And I would say that the jail and the district attorney down there have been very cooperative with us.
On that note, can you hear just broadly about how often this sort of delay happens with extradition requests on a national scale?
Yeah, I would, as Hennepin County attorney, I actually signed the packet before it goes to the governor here. The Attorney General's office pulled some data on it, and Governor Walz tends to sign them within 5 days of requests coming to him, and Governor Abbott has averaged around 30 days. We have never heard of anything taking this long because it is an administrative process. It is not supposed to be controversial. It is all states agree to this. Otherwise, what would happen if some states just decided that they weren't going to extradite a particular person.
And the Constitution requires it, but we're very clear that this is not some accidental thing. This is a choice.
Are either of you aware of any situations in recent memory where other states, maybe on completely unrelated matters, have refused to extradite a fugitive for any reason?
So the process, so that you understand it too, the governor, for instance, in this state, Governor Walz sent what's called a requisition warrant. The person that's wanted does have a right to contest whether they are the correct person, not whether they're guilty or anything like that. It's not meant to be substantive, but they can say, hey, yes, my name is Castro, but you've got the wrong person. And so the state would be required to prove in court in Texas, for instance, that yes, you are the correct person. So I can imagine that somebody has contested that, and maybe they haven't been able to prove it. But the reason there isn't much case law out there, and I think you all have access to the Attorney General's lawsuit, there are really two modern cases, one from 1996 and the other from 1986.
87, yeah.
And so this just doesn't happen. There's no need for litigation because this doesn't happen. And in 1987, the United States Supreme Court made it clear that there's absolutely no discretion. And that was the case from Puerto Rico, where Puerto Rico, an Iowa man apparently killed a woman in a car crash, came back to Iowa. Iowa did not want to extradite him. And the Supreme Court said, you have no choice.
Why not file this lawsuit sooner if the timeline is already so much longer than it typically is for this process?
Because we hope that the governor obeys the law, and we wanted to give him an opportunity to do so. This lawsuit comes because if we don't act, Castro could be set free in a few days. So, yeah.
Do you have any reason to believe that Mr. Castro could face federal charges before this end of August deadline is triggered? And have you been in touch with the U.S. Attorney's Office here on their plans and their own investigation into the shooting?
That possibility exists for sure. Beyond that, I don't know, maybe Mary has more information, but that possibility certainly exists. But whether they will or whether they're about to, I don't know.
We certainly have had ongoing conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office, but our focus is on our case. Obviously, we have dual jurisdiction here. The U.S. Attorney's Office can proceed or not. That does not impact our ability or willingness to go forward. So we have focused on our case.
But if that were to happen, it would render the extradition debate moot, correct? Because it would have jurisdiction to bring him here.
It's more complicated than that. I don't really want to get into the weeds there, but it might change the dynamics a little bit.
I know you haven't made a charging decision, but do you know the locations of the agents involved in the Freddie and Bill shootings?
I've always made it clear on that we were able to share evidence with the U.S. Attorney's Office and get much of the evidence that we did not have. We continue to go through that, and we don't have a timeline for a particular date. And I don't know that we've gone so far as to ask the BCA to find out where these people are.
Mary, on the Preddy side, I know the family attorney's been asked, each solicitor's talked about that 7 months later, they still don't even know the names of the agents who shot and killed Alex Preddy. Does your office know the names of those agents?
As I said in my press conference when we did the evidence sharing, we are trying to mirror what the BCA does, what we would do in Minnesota. And so the BCA is normally responsible for releasing names. And I did talk to Superintendent Drew Evans and directed inquiries to him because it would be the BCA that would release names.
How close are you getting to a final decision in the Preddy case?
Yeah, I, as you know, Paul, I don't make promises on that because I don't want to lift people's expectations. And what I can tell people is we are working very hard. We have looking, we have a team with the AG's office. We're looking through all of the evidence. And I'm optimistic that we will get to a charging decision, but I'm not going to say when that might be.
We're working on it every day.
Both offices then.
Together.
Yeah.
So that's we're good. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, Mary.